Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Bain was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It is the 15th of March. Oh, happy birthday to my best buddy in the whole world since we was about 5 years old or 6 years old. I can't remember exactly what year we met, but it was so long ago. Who could, to my best buddy Roof. Happy birthday, Roof. And to the rest of you, I'm giving you a birthday present. This is going to be the shortest intro ever because I don't know if you can tell it in my voice. My wife left for Florida, but she gave me something before she left. Yeah, a cold. And I don't feel good, and I'm just gonna bang this out. The title sponsor of this podcast has been and always will be Onyx Mapping Systems. They are the best mapping system in the world. Gunner kennels are the best kennel in the world. Garmin collars and transmitters are the best transmitters and collars in the world. Canine Athlete and Wilderness Athlete are the best supplements in the world for you and your dog. Mossberg are the best shotguns made in the United States of America. Boss shot shells are the finest, or we could just say the best non-tox shells made in this country. Purina Pro Plan is the best dog food that has ever been made. And you can argue that to the end of the earth, but you're never going to get anybody that knows more about dog food than Purina, period. Pike Gear is the best upland gear company in the world. I'm getting converted over to the Hell's Canyon vest, and I'm telling you what, the vest is the best. And Arxis boots, Arxis USA, they are the best rubber boot that you can find in the United States. The only problem is you can only find them on ArxisUSA.com. That's the same company that had Gumleaf. Not the same company, the same distributor. Not what I'm saying, Jack. My buddy Jack. Jack is back. Arxis boots. Get them now. In fact, there's a lot of flight tariff problems. If you're dilly-dallying about getting some rubber boots, don't. Get on the site, ARXUS, check them out, and that's it. I got a cold. I'm going to take some NyQuil. I'm going to watch the third episode of Madison tonight. I started watching that last night. I watched 2 episodes. I got to admit, I kind of liked it. I didn't like that Kurt Russell died in the first episode. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't see Madison yet? Well, sorry. Spoiler alert. But he's kind of back in, like in backstories and everything. So you get to see. Anyway, I like it. I really like it. I like it so far. The only thing I like more right now than Madison are my patrons. And you know who you are. And for those of you who only listen to a few episodes, and you know who you are, and don't always open your emails that I send, maybe you'll be listening to this episode. I'm trying to organize a trip through the Bird Dog Hall of Fame Museum in Grand Junction, Tennessee. I'm going to be calling them tomorrow, and I'm going to see what their schedule is like. We're shooting for the middle of May, but I don't know if they have any other events. So if you're a patron, or if you want to go down there and get I'm not even. I need to do an episode before we go down there with the folks at the Bird Dog Hall of Fame Museum, and I'm going to do another episode when I get down there. That's it. See, I told you. I got a cold. I'm going to get some NyQuil, and it's a wrap. Love you guys. Love you girls. And, of course, I love you patrons more.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. As I've told my listeners many times, write me letters. 52 times a year, I got to find content, and about 44 of them I've got a plan for. And the other, that's how bad my math is. The other dozen or so come from a cold call email, as the one did last week and this week, with Casey Ressler. He's a longtime North Dakota resident, started hunting in his teens and got dragged around the field by his dad. And now he's like all of us. He's knee deep into concrete, and it's starting to settle. And he's just noticed a lot of changes and sent me some PowerPoints. And I said, hey, come on a podcast. And Casey, I will ask you, give us just a little rundown whereabouts you are now and what you've been doing and your dog and all that kind of stuff. And then Then I want to go into some of the things you mentioned in your email, the cultural, ecological, and economical impacts, and that little tidbit you just told me before we hit the microphone too. Go ahead, Case.
Yeah, so obviously Ron's introduced my name and where I'm at. Longtime resident of North Dakota. I even asked my dad how long our family's been in North Dakota. So I'm a fifth generation North Dakotan, so I've seen a lot and been raised on a lot. Growing up, my dad got me in the field. Pheasant hunting, deer hunting were probably the big two. My cousins were avid waterfowl hunters, so on occasion I'd get out and get in the field and shoot some ducks and geese. Now, in the past 25 years, as I've sort of broadened my reality in hunting, I've had to go find places of my own. And that's, I think, when the struggles of not having public land has really sort of opened my eyes to the struggles that I think a lot of hunters are going through. I've heard a term a lot lately of hunting becoming a rich man sport, a pay to play type industry. And
There's
that's
a bit of
where,
that. There's a bit of
yeah,
that for sure.
my advocacy of trying to keep as much land public and accessible to residents and non-residents alike really came in the last 2 years.
Did you reach out to the state or to local? What did you do to start? The data that you sent me was it made me feel like I was in high school getting ready for an exam. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of numbers in there and a lot of good information on acreage and tillable acres. And where did you get all that information from?
Yeah, so initially, last October, in just conversations with the Game and Fish, they had introduced or invited me to a stakeholder meeting as they were seeing a lot of frustration on the side from hunters in our state as well. I started really digging into the numbers myself because I feel like you go to a bar and you start having conversations, and about 10 or 12 different viewpoints are
Yeah,
you got the landowner side, you got the hunter side, you have the non-resident side. And it's for me, having more of a analytical background as an engineer, I was like, I want to really see the statistics because I feel like that paints a better picture of what's actually going on than what perception. So like you said, is I went to the USDA agricultural website. You can do overlays of croplands from the 2020s all the way back to the early 2000s, and you can overlay how much of North Dakota, and I think they even you can do it for other states, how much the land has transitioned over the last 25 years.
right.
Um, so that was some of that. Some of the data also came from the Game and Fish themselves on licenses sold. When you're trying to do a correlation between how many people are coming to the state, how much
Right.
land is accessible through the public program, and how much of that is accessible through private lands. So
Yeah. Yeah. I this is something I don't remember. Well, for my listeners, I probably never got into this, but before we hit the record button, my first trip to North Dakota was over 20 years ago with a couple friends of mine. But we came from I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years of hunting South Dakota.
mhm.
So we kind of went up there on a lark. And this is how non-informed I was. This is before Onyx. This is when you had just the county book and you had to have a magnifying glass to figure out how many miles north and south you had to go. And this is how bad I was. I didn't even know it was a trespass-friendly state. I don't know what a better way to put it.
Mhm.
There's probably a technical word for it, but we went there just looking for the public land and we didn't go far into North Dakota, but we were kind of like bummed out. That was our first trip. And then 5, 6 years later, I went back, but those friends were all connected not too far from where you grew up over by Steel.
Mhm.
And that they knew all the farmers. So then it was like going on private property every day, right? So again, I didn't look for the public land. And then later on, I started going to North Dakota, in the last probably 8 years in a row, maybe a couple more than that, but at least eight. And I'm almost afraid to venture out away from where I go because I just know my spots. And it would you say it's getting better or more difficult? I get in general.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I did a poll on Facebook. Again, a lot of this is perception reality. Am I
Yeah.
thinking one thing and people are not seeing it?
Right.
About 89% of the people that commented, and there's about 70 comments, 89% said, they're seeing a huge struggle in the last 5 years because North Dakota now also passed electronic posting.
Mm-hmm.
So of that 11% that, stated like they actually find it's easier now, there's, you can find the contact information right on X, which is great.
Sure.
Now what a lot of people said is that also makes it harder because now you got
Everybody,
40, everyone has that phone number.
everybody
So,
can find out Mr. Krasinski owns 190
yep.
acres over there that looks really good. Right. Where before
So,
you had to do the scouting and you had to look for that farmhouse and you
mhm,
really had to almost get to the tavern to get to know, you know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see it's kind of a juxtaposed problem. It's good
Hmm.
and a bad. Yeah. What else did you get any haywire comments from when you did your little poll on Facebook? Like
Oh yeah, definitely.
we need to close the borders. Did you go to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few guys that, like you said, is one guy went back and forth, and that's where the statistics come in handy on my side is I
Yeah.
don't feel like it's a lot harder to argue the statistics. You might still have a stance one way or the other.
Sure.
But a lot of people, like the landowner side, is I pay taxes. I'm the one, right? I'm not me as a resident. I pay taxes too, but I'm not the one physically maintaining the land.
Right.
And with commodity prices going up, like that's profit in their pocket. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, there was a couple that were very far one way or the other. I might try to stay neutral as I educate myself.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of them, yeah, like you said, is up into the Devil's Lake area. One guy was saying all the pesticides in the field, all that landowners are running off into the waterways.
Yeah.
They had from a bird dog standpoint, they said they had a breakout of the blue algae that that is very your dog
Hey,
drinks it,
dead.
it's
Yeah.
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 And they saw a spike one year because of the pesticides running off, which also killed the cattails and all the other stuff.
Right.
So he was one way, but then another guy commented on there that you're an idiot for thinking that that's not what right. And so
Right.
I
Well,
didn't have any.
it also takes a drought to do it and other
Yep.
things
Yeah,
too.
which we in 2002 or 2022 and 2023 we were
Yeah.
in a heavy drought. Yeah.
Yeah. What have you found? Or I back this up. I had another
Mm,
question. Um, the plots program. I don't. You may not know the year it started. I know that's in the area where I go. I see I see a good amount of property put into plots.
mhm.
Is that because that's a more is that a more Western North Dakota thing or is that a Eastern North? Because you live now primarily in Eastern North Dakota.
Yeah,
It-
that's a good question. So in my interactions with the Game and Fish, and then pulling statistics, the plots program is pretty balanced between the east side and the west side.
okay.
But what they did state is the dollar amount that they have to pay the landowner to put in the plots program is quite different.
Oh,
So the number I remember is if they were to put uh, uh, a piece of land on the eastern side of the state, which is more heavily cropland,
right.
um, it's about $160 an acre. You go to the western side, which is more grass pasture land. It's
Yeah.
about $40 to $80 an acre. So it's about half the price. And I think that's where they find more success on that side of the state, even though the numbers do replicate that. It's pretty balanced.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And any in your background of like from your dad taking, like you said, your fifth generation. So
mm.
when you were a little, I don't want to say toddler, but when you were at times when you didn't really want to get out of bed and go with dad, he just knew people, right? That was
Yeah, and that's a good thing too. And when we speak cultural differences, right? So
Mhm.
when I was younger, my mom's side, she had cousins that were farmers down in the Wishick, Ashley, North Dakota area. They had lots of land, and during the heavy CRP, that was private access in the heyday of pheasants.
Yeah.
On the other side, my cousin's farm up in Harvey, Hertzfeld, North Dakota area, same thing, private land. Now, early 2010s when the CRP program pivoted and a lot of farmers took that out, all that private land that I had access to sort of slimmed. So I could say I was very beneficial. I had access to that because not everyone did. But
Right.
now this is where the growing pains come from, is the stuff I grew up hunting isn't readily available to just go out walking. Even generationally, when I spoke about Wishick, North Dakota, the kids didn't take up farming, so they leased the land out, and that's a, transition is there's a lot, in my perception is there's a lot less small farms now. A lot of farms are getting more corporate or larger, which is also affecting the need of, I think, people to go to a public-based land access.
Yeah. And you said something, and I think I'd like to get this out because it's a fact that I told you I was going to remember my long term in my homunculus, as some people say, that we were kind of talking about how I started in South Dakota, and is I've been hunting long enough to where the farming practices were even more pheasant friendly,
Hmm. Yeah.
less drain tiles, things like that.
Yep.
Less, it wasn't always to the road edge. And I said, I believe, Pheasant Forever has just done a phenomenal job in the state of South Dakota, who's always embraced, come to South Dakota because if
Hmm.
you can't find a wild bird, you can sure find a lodge, right? I mean, you throw a stone and you can find a lodge to go
Yep.
to. But you explain to me what you said to me so I don't screw it up, how North Dakota doesn't have the same uh, working partnership with 501(c)(3)s and stuff.
Yeah. So I'm still researching this aspect a little further to really get in the nuts and bolts of it. But basically, North Dakota's Century Code, which is basically their list of how they run the state, laws and all that.
Hmm.
And one of the aspects in their Century Code is who can purchase agricultural land. And there is a restriction that nonprofits and corporations cannot purchase agricultural land. It has to go through a system of right to purchases, and they're on the way bottomless, which is a double-edged sword. Conservation groups like Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, Mule Deer Foundation are sort of prohibited in coming into the state and purchasing land to put into a public program.
They can work with a farmer but not like they've done in a lot of spots. There's
Yeah,
actually land they've acquired.
yep.
And yeah.
Now on the flip side, that also helps us though by, I'm gonna throw out a term just as an example, like Microsoft can't come in and just purchase a bunch of land, right?
Right.
So
That's good. That's good.
yeah, so it's a double-edged sword because we're preventing groups that help conservation and open land access to out-of-state hunters and residents getting access, but it also
Yeah.
prevents other corporations from coming in as well.
Yeah. You said something I've never quite understood it when you say corporate farming, and I'm only going by the area that I've hunted for the last, we're just going to say decade.
Mhm.
I do realize after meeting some of the local people there, how few people actually farm, even if they still own it, they don't farm it. Now,
Yep.
that may not be a corporation doing it, but that's one farmer that's big enough and strong enough and has the money to literally, I don't want to say farm the whole county, but you'll see those same trucks working that whole count,
Yeah.
that now whether that's sure if he's a farmer, he's probably incorporated. I was self-employed. I was incorporated. Didn't make me a corporate. When you hear the word corporation, you sound like, oh, Monsanto, or Walmart or something, or,
Yep.
or Microsoft. But um, I wish I could have a guy from South Dakota talk about the fact um, that you could go as a corporation and go buy land in South Dakota. I mean, you're right.
Hmm.
It's probably I like that double-edged sword kind of,
Yeah.
the fact that it couldn't just be done, but that still doesn't change the fact that, farming practices change.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm going to catch some heat for this one. But when I used to knock on doors, and I'm going to go right back to say 35 years ago, my first trip to South Dakota, I mean, it was always a yes, but the yes was contingent on if the wife was home, she said, I have to ask my husband. I'm sure he'll let you, right?
Yep.
And now I'm telling you, if I owned property in South Dakota and somebody knocked on the door, my wife would say no, just because she'd be less ready to just have strangers come on the land. So
Yep.
when you say cultural, I think that's made a big, just in general. And I'm not saying that it's not the woman's fault, it's not the man's fault. It's just we're all a little less. The kids don't go out and play as much. They don't ride their
Yep.
bike as far enough. we're all kind of a little worried about everything. And
Yep. I mean,
that's got,
a good example, not
yeah,
to cut you off, a
no,
good
go ahead.
example is I don't know how many times my wife's like, "Who's coming down the street? Oh, close the blinds, right? Like, let's if they ring the doorbell, right?"
Yeah, it could be
Um,
Jehovah's Witness though.
yeah, it's different even in that regard. Like you said, is there
Right,
used to be more of a you could leave your door wide open, but you just don't see that. No one wants to answer their door anymore.
right. And you kind of mentioned something on Onyx. I was hunting all around this person's property, and we really hadn't. We last couple of years we struggled a little bit. Now we're talking most, sharptail in this area,
Mm,
and I kept seeing this person's name. I'm like, wow, if we could just get one little corner here to get in, we're gonna go into some uncharted territory.
yep.
And I was met with a flat out no, and it wasn't even a friendly no, but I think it
Yeah.
went to the point you said. So many people have asked him. He's just like, how many of you are there out there? So
Hmm.
on that regard, I'm almost like, as a non-resident, you always hear people say, "Hey, knock on a door." Most of them just want to save it for deer hunting or family,
Yep.
but you can just get tired of being asked too.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah, and
So
I don't knock them, like you said it. And I mean, a good example is usually pheasant season opens up right when harvest kicks off. If they're
right,
spending X amount of hours in the field harvesting, and then they get 18 phone calls while they're focused on harvesting,
right,
it's going to be a distraction for them.
right. They can ignore the phone calls, but then the car pulls up in the driveway. It's like,
Yep.
leave me alone.
Yeah.
But where do you think it's? I mean, do you have a feeling where it's going? And if it's in your mind downhill, lay that out. What do you think?
Yeah. So pheasant's a tough one. I mean, this we're all advocates for pheasant, say, grouse, and all that. The big thing in North Dakota right now is deer licenses.
Yeah,
Upland, I look back like deer hunting was like a holiday. Your school schedule always revolved around it. You got Thursday and Friday of deer opener off, and that's what everyone in class was like. Are you going deer hunting? Who got to take, right?
right.
That excitement. Um, Now, like I said, in the past 5 years, we've had so much disease. Weather. There was one year I was at one of the small town bars in North Dakota, and I was talking to a guy. He's like, I had 15 deer carcasses dead all around my just his house because of the how heavy the snow came in and the lack of
Cover
um,
and what have you.
cover and
Yeah,
food. Yeah. And so, like I said, I think that's eye-opening, and I bring up deer hunting in that regard because a lot more people are now aware of it. That the state needs a change. What that change is the silver bullet right now that I don't think anyone um, has an answer for. I've sort of now started trying to work with our legislation, and that's become a tough thing because to get more habitat, to get more accessibility, and all, it takes money.
yeah,
And now the hardest thing is how do you get that funding? And so it's a delicate balance. I've had some legislatures come back that says we as hunters need to evolve. That sort of struck a nerve with me because it's like I can only evolve so much as a hunter.
yeah,
If the state itself isn't also doing something to help us. Um, Now, as we're talking, it's like it's that big thing too, private versus public.
yeah,
And I feel like as we go forward, and that's I told that same legislature too, is like, what about future generations? If we don't change now, future generations aren't gonna take up hunting, and it really will become a rich man's sport.
yeah. That for sure, because so many people have, and I'll go right out and blame the deer hunters because I'm not one of them. Okay, I will say I love the taste of it. I've butchered a few, and I've shot three, I think, in my life.
Mm.
Love, but the the deer hunters would be the first ones because of them damn antlers. They will make an offer to somebody, and that somebody
Yeah.
might say, you know what? It's a whole lot easier to say yes to your group. I know the one group that's going to be out here, and I don't have to deal with it.
Yep.
And that is pay to play. It
Hmm.
really is. And yeah, nobody likes to see it go that way. You're right. And from what I remember, and I don't remember a lot in school, but they quit making land like 80 billion years ago, or something like that, right? It's like
Yep.
and, anything we can convert is into wind column, but how do we convert it? That's
Yep.
and I don't know what that takes, but keep on with your thoughts there. I just,
Yeah. So, I've been trying to approach it. A big thing in North Dakota is the oil and gas. We have a reserve fund that was set up early 2000s that sits at currently $11 billion. And it's a very touchy subject in our state because once you start tapping into it, next thing you know, it's at zero, right? And that's not something I want for our state too. But there's some thoughts of is like, how do you get that money back to the land? Because it really only exists from the oil and gas that we're pulling out of our own state. But
if none of it's used, then
yeah,
what was the point in in building up that war chest? Yeah.
They did release a new program. That's by that the Game and Fish worked with our new governor. It's like I think it's called the Soil and Habitat Program, and essentially it's not going to compete with CRP, which is good. And it's a way to get more habitat out there. I don't know all the CRP restrictions, but from what I've heard is it's very stringent. It has to be tied up for 10 years. You either have to put 50% or 100% of the field into the CRP program. And what that does is it really sort of strangleholds the farmers and the landowners and how they utilize that land once they put it in the program.
Yeah.
What this program is supposed to do is sort of puzzle piece habitat across the state is how I understand it. So a farmer could say, hey, only this corner of my field is low yielding. I don't want to farm it. I'll go put it in CRP, not in habitat.
Right.
And then they get a really little bit more incentive if they actually make it public land or open the public hunting.
Now, would that be the plots program or is that not the plots program?
It could theoretically be the plots program because if they sign up,
they'd have to sign up for that as well.
Yeah, correct. Now some of them might say, I just want to put in habitat, which I'm fine with because birds need cover too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think they estimated that in the next 5 years, that might add another 580,000 acres of habitat to our state, which is still pretty substantial.
Yeah. I mean, it's small compared to the state, but that's 580,000. It might not have ever.
Yeah, that doesn't exist today. So
and when a program catches on, you don't know the snowball effect that it could have.
Correct. Maybe they get maybe it doubles. People start putting in a lot more, and especially not to get in politics or anything, but soybeans is a huge part of our state.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's been in the news, and so you don't know what cultural shift from a landowner's perspective or farmers that might transition to. So
right. Like
they might say, hey,
I can't sell a soybean.
Yeah, I'll put it in this program. Yep.
Or I'm not putting in as many soybeans at least.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. When you go hunting out there, what's your, I don't want to say your game plan, because you're not living near where your family grew up, where you grew up. What's your plan when do you go out? Are you looking for public? Are you knocking on doors, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, I'm mainly public now. So like I said, I'm on Onyx and I'm looking at our public land. I'll drive, and I'm fairly familiar with the southeast corner of the state now, on what public land has been holding more birds than another.
Right.
So I usually gravitate towards those. Now, the other issue with the plots program is if you're not the first one there, you might be pulling in and somebody's already parked there.
Right.
So then you're like, well, now I got to pivot. So it's a lot of hunting for the right piece of land. And like I said, it's mostly public. When it comes to, I do turkeys. And usually I lean on my dad a little more because he's got a couple friends still in the Bismarck area that have turkeys come through. So when it comes to that, I'm usually doing that. But
so you're a ground swatter.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
oh, I gotta kill that.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. That was me off my phone. Yeah, I always pick on deer hunters and turkey hunters. Again, I think I've got a total of 3 in each category, so I like to pick on deer hunters because you're all looking for that biggest beard and the biggest antlers.
Yeah,
it's all your fault. But.
Well, and that's a good thing I've been pushing for our legislatures. For me, like I said, I just like being out in the field with the dog, and that's I think why I gravitate towards pheasant hunting. Is if I didn't shoot a bird and I saw 10 points, I'd be happier than get a. I did have a day last year where I was like, I gotta go shoot clays or something more. I think we got just me and my dog. We had 25 pheasants get up. I was almost out of shells, and I only had one one bird in my bag. And I was like, this never happens. I think, I shot terrible, but he had a great day. So
I've had days like that.
yeah.
It almost makes you say, I either have to go get an instructor, shoot more, or get a new gun.
Yeah.
I had a friend, just a sidebar story. He came out with me. I think it was might have been last year or the year before, and he brought out a gun that I happen to have the same gun in it's a SKB side by
Hmm.
side, and he says I only brought that out because I haven't been shooting my other gun good, and but I shoot this one worse, you know. And we went out together, and he got his first bird, first shot with that gun, and all of a sudden, miraculously, he wasn't a bad shot, you know.
Yeah.
But those days do question your sanity
Yep.
and your ability to like, no, I got to try to do that again. I don't believe the dog gets mad at us like some people say. I get mad at myself enough for it.
Oh yeah.
I don't need to think about my dog being ornery about it. I just thought it's like, yeah, that's on me.
He probably would have been upset because he's like, if I shot and got all three right away, it'd be like, we're headed to the truck. And he's like, I thought we were hunting.
Right. So he got the hunt anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What you said you had an English setter.
Correct. Yep.
Is
So this is my second English setter. My first, my dad grew up mainly with short hairs and white hairs to start.
mm-hmm.
The first dog of his I remember was named Daisy. And she was a white hair. I think he had her till she was about 10, but then the temperament sort of was shifting because she got a little more. His next,
Yeah.
yeah, his next three dogs were all white hairs and short hairs. And then, like I said, 2012, I got my first English setter, which he gifted to me. Um, I didn't get it out on birds for the first 4 or 5 years, but when I did, it was like the instinct was there right away.
Oh yeah.
Um,
They don't
and
instincts don't expire.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I was like, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now my current English setter is going on 5 years old, and he is glued. When he's in the house, he's freaking glued to the window because the birds are flying by.
Right.
So yeah.
What have you seen? I know you don't say you as myself, I don't identify as a waterfowl hunter, but I'll go
Mm.
on any invitation to go waterfowl hunting.
Yeah.
Do you kind of track some of this data with the geese in the field? Like, are the goose hunters saying no, everything's just fine? You
Yeah.
know, have you seen any changes in that?
So that's a good question. So North Dakota did another change on the waterfall side where you now have to purchase, well, this is for, I think it's residents and non-residents, but it's unit based now. So
Right,
when the flocks are coming down, that has had a huge backlash because you come to the state, you don't know where the birds are going to be
right.
shifting between, right? So if you purchase a license and all of a sudden they're the next unit over, you're sort of
Yeah,
hosed.
yeah, yeah.
So I think they're having their own issues because as the birds get pushed around, they start um, flocking up in different areas, and as it's harder to get private access, um, they're fight. You got maybe 10 different groups that are the same thing going to the same farmer because of they're all scouting the field over there,
Right, right.
and they're having the same struggles I think as
Yeah,
say
in a way, it's
upland.
probably even more. We can always, if we can find like you said, and I think this is very true, if we can at least find a place to walk with our dog,
Hmm. Yeah,
yes, we always want to get a bird. But I mean, a nice couple hour walk with your dog, even if you don't get a bird. But if you drive, get all them decoys and all them blinds, and then you got to drive all over the county to see where that one flock goes to, right?
yep.
And there's other people, yeah, that it might be worse
It's
being a duck hunter in North Dakota than it is
It
in
really, I think it really is from what I've heard.
yeah.
Like you said, yeah, spend 2 hours, maybe 3 a.m. getting the decoys out, sitting in your
Oh,
blind to realize that
they're not coming.
the they're not. Yeah.
I'm going to put this on pause for 1 second.
Okay.
Well, we both had dog issues. I had one whining, and Casey had to get one out. I made a mistake, possibly. I put my little Cocker Spaniel over here in one of my gunner kennels, and I can hear her tail batting on the side of it. I don't know what's going to be more aggravating, her whining or her tail whacking the side of
Yeah.
it. Um, Where were we though? That's the problem when I take a pause like that. I'm
I
talking
I
about
had left off
waterfowl,
sort of,
the
what I grew
waterfowlers.
up with, what I have now
Yeah,
for a dog.
yeah. So now yours is 5 years old now.
5 years old. Yep.
Are you always a one dog person at a time, or
So I w- I'm probably at that point in the next 3 years that I probably have to have a serious conversation with my wife, because I feel like 8 years old is about the time where you start looking at your
yeah?
next one. But she's also a dog person, so we have three in total, but only
Mm.
the one is a hunting dog. So um, it'll be a conversation when hers goes, if it's a hunting dog or if it's something else.
Just I could give you off air advice on how to get that done, but it's
Well, in this, so
but
the
it.
one I have now, so like I said, is my first English setter actually got diagnosed with cancer.
Mhm.
Um, and so about 8 or 9 months after, I was sort of like, is it too soon? I still was sort of conflicted myself of how soon is too soon.
Right.
Um, and so about 8 or 9 months later, I had the conversation with her, and she's like, "You do what you want." So I did, and she's like, "Well, I guess this is happening." I think she wanted the wait a little longer, but it's like, I don't think you know how hard it is to go pheasant hunting without a dog. You can
It's
do it, but you're not going to be successful.
I was just on a panel. It's Pheasant Fest, and they had me up there with some other podcasters, and it was just a stock like, what's your favorite bird to hunt? All of us, where do you like to go the most, and what's your favorite bird? And I always say pheasant. I grew up in Illinois, shooting a few, and then working with the state program in Illinois. Got to Michigan and fell in love with rough grouse, but there was a lot of rough grouse around. And after going to South Dakota and then really having better dogs, to me, that is the sneakiest, nastiest bird. I mean, in some situations, there's nothing sneakier or evil than a rooster pheasant. Like
Hmm.
they will give your dogs fits, right? Yeah, I have stood back in the day when I was smoking. I have stood smoking a cigarette, and by the time I put that cigarette out, the rooster was sitting at my feet the entire time. And it wasn't because he was stupid. It was like he's like, I'm waiting for him to flick. I'm
Yep.
waiting. Like I swear, he's like, when he flicks that cigarette back into the cornfield, that's when I go.
Yep.
I mean, I've never had more fun than rooster tails. I always think, everyone likes going to the prairie for the sharp tails, but when the situations are early in the season, it's not a hard bird to hunt. It's nowhere near as sneaky,
Hmm.
a little harder to approach sometimes, but um, certainly I think I would not dare say it's the T-ball of North Dakota birds, but it's not as hard as a pheasant. If you
Yeah.
had one pheasant in a section and one sharp tail, I think you'll get the sharp tail.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
that's grouse season opens, I think, a month before pheasant does in North
right,
Dakota.
right.
Um, but for how many there are, I've just never had success getting them because I not the sharp tails, but they're so skittish sometimes. It's
Hmm.
like one gets up and because we are more open,
Right.
um, sometimes that's why there's not a lot of cover for them.
Now, will you get Sharpies all the way out toward your place? Certainly not in the numbers out west, but are you pretty much pheasant and occasional hun by you?
Yeah, on the east, southeast side, it's a lot more pheasant. There's not a lot of a grouse and all that. And actually, I
Right.
think you pull up the map, I think there's even a grouse restriction area,
Oh,
because the
okay.
numbers aren't there.
Yeah.
If you go to the northeast side of the state, the pheasants aren't anywhere. It's all potatoes for the most part up there. So there's no cover up there. So that's where the west side, I think, gets hammered with pheasant hunters.
And grouse hunters. Yeah, the
Yeah.
early
Yep.
grouse, or
Yeah.
you try to hit it where you can catch both seasons at the same time, which
Exactly.
which does make the sharp-tail hunting a little bit more difficult.
Yep.
Again, probably because somebody else has been in that field the day before you've been.
Exactly.
How, how do you feel about the blue platers? I think everybody's called a blue plater, but do you, I'm picturing your area as less frequented by non-residents. I could be 100% wrong, but is it or isn't it?
I've seen a good chunk of non-residents even on this side of the state. And now maybe it's because they have family or access to,
Yeah.
some stuff on this side of the state. But I remember this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I went to probably 6 or 7 different public pieces, and they all had Minnesota license plates at them. And I was like, I'm running out of stuff to check on here. So, and that's a delicate balance. My brother still lives in Bismarck, and we still chit chat on hunting. He also has an English setter and a 1 year old. But same thing. He said a guy drove up to him and said, "Hey, I was scouting this field yesterday. I didn't get here, but do you mind if I hunt it with you?" And he said they had a very respectful, guy. They both hunted it. They both, I think, got one bird out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like you run into some hunters that are very etiquette. They'll ask you if they can hunt it with you. You probably say no, but yeah.
Yeah, but if it's public, yeah, it probably is good, especially if you see a
Yeah.
small party. Now, if you see a
Yeah.
big party, a couple trucks, they're not.
Yeah,
They
you're
don't
passing.
know. But if it's you and your dog and him and his dog, you
Yep.
could, even if they started playing grab ass, you could spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
What do you find is your best way to, like? Do you scout much? Like, do you go by the roadside counts? Do you scout much? Do you? I know you're not a mailman, so you don't get to run the gravel roads. Um, how do you do any scouting, or do you just?
A little bit. Like I said, I usually scout for cover. I'm not maybe per se looking for birds or anything, but
Just
it's like,
cover?
hey, yeah. And I gravitate towards. I have noticed that I have a buddy of mine that we usually go. Much different fitness styles. So when we see tall cattails, he's like, "Oh, let's leave it." And I was like, "Well, that's probably where they're
Yeah,
at."
yeah, yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I've hunted cattails just myself and my dog, and it's almost nearly impossible when they're as tall as you to be able to get the pheasants to push out. You drop it in there.
And
You got to call your dog back. You got to.
good
It's a
chance
lot
of
of work.
losing that bird, especially a
Yep.
pheasant. Especially a
Yeah.
pheasant. Yeah. Where I don't have all your charts pulled up, but you talked about economical impacts.
Yeah.
Is the state, and I know you're not speaking for the state, and I want everybody to be clear about that. You are just a resident hunter from North Dakota, who's
Correct. Yep.
because you got an engineering degree, you like data,
Yep.
right? You
You nailed
probably
it.
have the 300i, you track your steps, and you know how many miles your dog ran, where I have
Yep.
no idea. But um, is North Dakota, with this new program you mentioned, is there a, I mean, I see it in the bars, welcome hunters and things like that. They'll put the banner up on the side.
Yep.
But economically, is it welcomed in most places, or is it like, we have the signs up on the bar, but we really don't care if you come or not. You know what I mean?
From my perception is small towns love hunting season because of all the foot traffic they get.
Yeah.
There was a study done by North Dakota State University of looking at the economical impacts of hunting in North Dakota, and what they found out. I don't have the statistic handy, but there was about a $40 million loss from 2023 to 2024 along those lines due to the decline of hunters in our state.
Oh,
So
wow.
and when North Dakota being such a rural state and having
Mhm.
such small towns, like you mentioned, where you hunt the ghost town, right?
The ghost
Some of
town.
those,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of those cities are feeling the impacts, I believe, with the lack of hunters now spending at the convenience stores, spending money at the bars, spending money at the hotels and restaurants and all that.
Yeah.
So that's where I've sort of come to our legislation and saying, because we are a heavily oil and gas state, is how can we invest in our state to start bringing, tourism or hunting, back to our state the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that? How do we see that happening, Casey?
Yeah, that's where that one that told me we need to evolve as hunter. I was like, well, I'm gonna come at you with
Yeah, because
some.
that sounds either dismissing, or like, if you said you need to evolve as a hunter, do you mean I need to evolve into a hiker? You
Yeah,
know?
that's what I said. I was like, you don't know me,
Right.
from that legislature's guy, but I was like, I cover a lot of ground. That was one thing my dad instilled us when we went deer hunting and pheasant hunting. We it was 8 hours of hunting if you didn't have your limit, right? It's just like,
Yeah, you just kept hunting,
yeah,
kept hunting, keep
yeah.
going. So
So,
where
oh,
do
go
I
on.
mean, where do you think if you had your wish list, or as some famous podcaster says, if you could if God came down and pointed a gun at you and said, "What should we do?" What would you like to see?
I think it's habitat and accessibility are the two things. Um if we can get more habitat, that should help wildlife in general, whether it's pheasants, grouse, turkeys,
Right.
deer, right? But then on the hunter side, okay, now the numbers are rebounding, but if you don't have accessibility for hunters to hunt, okay, now you have the numbers, but you don't have the access.
Right.
So they go hand in hand. The the tough thing is, like you said, is culturally, I feel like the relationship between hunters and landowners has shifted from the 90s.
Hmm.
I couldn't find a lot of statistics on it, but if you do a Google search, it came up with in the early 2000s, landowners started posting at a higher rate than it was seen in the 80s and 90s
Right.
because of liability issues. One
Right.
bad hunter can ruin it for everyone.
Yeah. At
Um,
least everyone in one county, even,
yeah,
that one bad story can spread to just church on a Sunday, and that guy says, "You know what? I got to get those corner signs back up."
yep.
Yeah.
And then e-posting has made it easier for landowners too. And so
Hmm.
it's good then if we have the habitat, but how do you get hunters to have access if it's not public? Or how do you sort of rebuild the relationship between hunters and landowners? And
What we're
that's
looking for is a time machine. We need to somehow slide the scale back to in the 90s aren't that long ago.
no.
No,
Well,
it's
that's where
not.
I had pitched uh, a pheasant season modification to one of our biologists in North Dakota, because our season runs shorter than South Dakota's. It might even run shorter than Minnesota's as well. I'm not what theirs is, but ours ends the first week in January.
Yeah,
And I think South Dakota's runs till the end of January.
right.
And I had pitched like, could we do a spring season? So you might still end it in the first week in January, but maybe you start it up for a month of March or something like that. Because as I looked into the pheasant population, how they hatch, breed, and all that, it seemed like May was about the time they start laying eggs and all that, or reproducing. And so it wouldn't affect that. And actually, the biologist got back to me and said, you know what? I don't think we've ever considered that as an opportunity. I looked too, it's March 2nd right now, and we're supposed to hit 50 degrees, which never happens in North
Right.
Dakota.
Right.
And I was like, I would definitely take the day off and go hunting if I could. So,
Yeah, because it's the one bird you can pick the
yep,
sex up.
yep. And
I,
I had pitched that as an alternative too. If they were really worried about affecting the bird population, our limit in North Dakota is three. You could do a
yeah.
reduced break limit. It's like I'd go out for one bird. I don't know if
Oh,
everyone would,
yeah.
but
I
yeah.
wouldn't drive to North Dakota for one bird, but if I live there, but believe me, I've drove to North Dakota and got one bird. So not that I wouldn't do it by choice, I'd do it
Yeah.
by happenstance. But of course, I'm the guy who's like, nope, it's too windy. No, it's too cold. That's a whole different story. But no,
Yeah.
I mean, ideas like that, you could it's almost like a spring gobbler season.
Yeah.
You're not affecting the hens, you're not affecting the hatch. There's enough gobblers to go around
Yep.
and breed. And that could
Something
be,
in
yeah,
yeah, something interesting enough too. I never considered, but he's like, why he thought that was a good consideration is he's like, we do want to weed out a portion of birds, and the best way is through hunting rather than winter kill. Because he said if we have a harsh winter and there's not enough food for the birds, you're gonna get die off some way.
right.
And if you can do that through the hunting program, then that's more advantageous than them just dying in the
Right.
field for
If if
coyotes to come.
if X amount of birds could survive a bad winter, triple that amount of birds, they could all starve to death.
Correct. Yeah.
They're basically sharing the same food source. So
Yeah.
man, push that one through, Case.
Yeah.
You need to
I'm
run
gonna
for like
follow up on that one.
you need to run for a representative or something here at some point. I like it. I like it. Have you gotten involved with any of the prairie grouse organizations or DU or Pheasants Forever? Have you gotten involved with any of them?
Not well. I usually do a membership fee with them. But
Yeah.
like you said, pheasants forever in our state. It's because of that, century code and stuff like that. They're not
Right.
as prevalent. However, because I'm starting to research the century code further and how it does affect pheasants forever, I do have an email out to I think their communications person.
Mm-hmm.
But she was also at Pheasant Fest, a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
So she was also busy. I emailed her this morning to reconnect and connect her on, to get their feedback on it. So
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And I'm
yeah.
I'm really glad you said you joined it, you're a member, because I have a I said this at PF when I was on a panel, and I've said it at talks I give. And this is something I think hunters can do. And this is just me getting on my soapbox, which people who've been listening to this for a long time know I can get on a soapbox once in a blue moon. If you take a wild bird from this country, you owe it to that habitat organization that's working for that bird.
Hmm.
I don't care if you don't want to go to a banquet and you don't want to check all the no's on your thing, because even though that maybe PF can't purchase land, and we could be wrong. There might be there might be something somebody does with PF there. I don't want to speak for
Yeah.
PF, but as hunters, you definitely should join whatever group of bird you're hunting. And I got I got my own, like smack, what they call it, gobsmack last spring when the Prairie Grouse Initiative and the Greater Prairie Grouse Organization. It was like, I'm not a member. I've been out there. I've been telling everybody, if you hunt grouse, you got to be RGS. If you hunt pheasants, I'm like, oh shit. I've been hunting sharptails now for a while, and I never ponied up, you know. So
Yep.
I tripled up my donation to them for the first year just because I felt guilty. But as hunters, you really should consider, even if you go out once a year, if you go to North Dakota once a year, South Dakota, Iowa, there's a lot of places to go pheasant hunting, but the big four states, it's kind of like shame on you for not at least those organizations are trying.
Hmm.
It's maybe harder in North Dakota. It might be easier in South Dakota, but the programs that I listen to them and I get their magazines, they're working their tail off for us. So we do got a place to go, whether they own it or not, or whether I know PF for sure works with the ranchers and farmers for, productive ground. And um, so that's my soapbox. Like I'll say it till I die. You owe it to that organization that supports that bird you want to go chase. So I'm glad you said you were a member.
Well, that's where I felt that one. And when I bought my license here on the state website, one of the questions is, do you want to donate to the plots program? And
Yeah.
I was like, I've typically clicked no, and I was like, whoa, this goes against. I'd be a hypocrite
Right,
if
right.
I didn't do it. And so the same thing with Pheasants Forever. I think they came to was like, if I'm such an advocate for pheasant hunting, I need to join the organization
Right.
and at
Even if you
least, yeah,
don't join a chapter, even if you don't go to a banquet,
yep,
you're like, hey, at least I'm doing something.
yep,
Like I believe in the cause, because I mean, without those organizations, we'd definitely be in worse shape.
hmm,
But without the hunters, and Marilyn Vetter told me this the other day when I had her and Ted Cook on and Ben Jones on. All those organizations, if you were to survey live people chasing sharptails or people chasing rough grouse or people chasing pheasants, the amount of those people that are members is like from anywhere from 2% to 10%. And that's pitiful.
yeah,
That is really pitiful. Like you can hear somebody, like when you did that survey, I almost wish you could have had another box like, oh, by the way, are you a member of?
yeah. And
And
that's a good point because you go on a lot of these sporting forums that
yeah,
are advocating for something, and like said, well, did you contact your legislature or anything, or did you join? No, I didn't do that. Right? It's like,
right.
well, you can't expect change if you're not willing
Yeah.
to invest in it.
Did you vote on public land sales out in Utah?
Yeah,
And you're like, well, no, it's not
yeah,
hard to do. But I mean, I've said this so many times. When I started hunting, I did I thought by going to the banquet I was doing well, the way I bid on things, I was helping. But um I thought that's all you had to do.
Mhm.
And it's got to go to the conversation at the bar, like, or the conversation you had on a Facebook post.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to engage with somebody and I don't want to say call them out, but it's like, where are you getting your information from?
Yeah.
I got a good friend of mine. It kind of goes back to your survey, how you got like a lot of it was centrist. Then you had the outliers.
Yep.
I had a buddy of mine who known him my whole life, and he says, "Do you know how much property in South Dakota that the Chinese own?" I said, "No, I don't, Roof." I said, "How much?" He goes, "Well, I don't know, but I heard it was a lot." And we talk every morning. We argue like, well, we are like brothers. And I Googled AI. China was like 17 on the amount of countries that own land in South Dakota. And he goes to Ireland to see family, and Ireland's got more property than most countries in South Dakota. So, yeah, I think we all got to open our eyes a little bit and
Yeah.
pay attention to things more,
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. You don't have the silver bullet, and I don't have the silver bullet. And maybe the silver bullet is these talks and, hitting one more person and connecting with one more person. But I know I don't want to find out the day that I'd be okay if the birds were there and I couldn't hunt, but I don't want to see the day that the birds aren't there.
Yeah.
I really don't want the no hunting part, but I really, really don't want oh, well, there are no birds. I don't want that to be the story. There are no birds. That's why we don't hunt. And, whatever, especially states like North Dakota can do to keep that, I don't think people realize in Michigan, we had a program years ago where they brought in another strain of ringneck that was supposed to do better in woody areas. Didn't work. We don't have that checkerboard area. If you knock pheasants out of one area, now they're over in a farm where there's no cover, right? Where in a lot of states out west, they might find a ditch, they might find a cattail slough, but it's just not working in Michigan. There's no other place for them to fly to and spend the night. And I don't want to see the Dakotas or Iowa, Minnesota turn that way. So Casey, start an organization. I'll be on the board for you.
That might be the way. Well, that's a good segue into one of the thoughts I had. So, like we said, when I really started advocating for some kind of change in North Dakota, and
Right.
it was really just the start communication, because I felt like there was just a lack of communication. And as I've gotten involved, I've seen other people that have really tried to do the same thing I'm doing. So it's nothing new per se, but as you mentioned, is one person can only do so much. We need a community of it. And one of the comments from the governor's office when I says like, well, work with your Pheasants Forever group and your Ducks Unlimited. And initially I was like, I don't want to go work with a lobbyist group, was my initial thought. Lobbyists to me always has a negative connotation,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, that they are working to promote, similar interests of mine. So
Yeah, if nothing else, you could get your message through better than you can at the bar.
yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that the bar is a bad place to be. I love bars, but you're not going to get a lot of shit moving in the
No.
bar. You might have to put boots on because of all the shit moving in the bar, but you're not going to get anything done. You're not going to
Yep.
get anything done.
Yeah.
So, give me an idea. How was your last season, or even comparatively with the weather? Because I know you guys have had some really mild winters. You're basically another one now. I mean, short of a storm. How was your bird hunting? How was your weather out there? How you?
Yeah, so October and November were really good. Thanksgiving, like you said, we had a snowstorm that blew in. And I remember talking to my brother-in-law who tried to go out Saturday after Thanksgiving. And I was like, how did it go? He's like, we gave up after a half hour. He's like, there's four of us trudging through a large field. I think I looked at it, it was about 202 acres. But the grass before even the snow set in, was about maybe to your waist, fairly tall stuff. But then you pack in another 1.5 feet of snow. He's like, we turned around. So I was like, okay. So that following week, I was like, we had a little warm up, and I was like, oh, must be okay. I walked that same field and I didn't see one bird. and I was like, oh, they must be buried in there. I think I kicked up a hen,
Yeah.
but I was freaking exhausted after that field. So we had winter set in, yeah, like I said, early December, which made things difficult. You could still drive around, and if you're willing to just hit a cattail slough,
Right.
and take the easy way out and let the dog do the work inside,
Yeah. Yeah.
you still had opportunities. Because as I drove around that day trying to look, I saw the birds. It was just a matter of how do you get to them.
Right.
As you mentioned, how smart they are a little bit. I saw 3 roosters on the side. After I finally did my due diligence to see if it was posted, check the corners, check the map.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think I'm good. And I drove, and as I shut the door, about 25 got out. I was like, oh, I only saw the 3, but there's about 25 buried in there. And I was like, oh shit. I still tried to then they flew across the road. So then I was like, oh, let me see if I can get there. I wasn't getting them. So but
Didn't do it.
the season as a whole was very good. It was just
Yeah.
a matter of, like you said, come December, it became harder with
Which
the
isn't
snow.
abnormal for North Dakota.
No,
I mean,
no.
if you go back probably when you were a kid, hunting shut down a lot of, I mean, when you had what we call
Yep.
winters, yeah, your hunting was done. I
Yep.
mean, there's only so much work you do,
Yep.
and your dog can only do so much.
Yeah. I mean, I remember early November deer hunting in about 2.5 feet of snow. So like I said, from the bird
Mhm.
side, same thing is like you're not gonna be bird hunting in already in early November. So
Just
yeah.
give it up. Give it
Yep.
up. But this weather trend that we're in now, it kind of, like you said, kind of makes you wish for, if not a season all the way through, like, okay, when the snow goes away,
Yeah.
could we go out and try to pop a rooster off?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I might take the drive for that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. There's not a lot of hunting in the spring, at least in North Dakota. You can do
Right,
spring goose, and turkey, and that's really about it. So
right. And
yeah.
spring goose is such a mess. I mean,
Yep.
the investment, it's just where if you're a guy who wants to just walk with your dog, it's basically over. Now, do you know, I'm assuming there's a cutoff date in Michigan. I'm probably screwed up, but I believe it's April 15th. We can't go out with our dogs. So we can go out with our dogs like right now. It's March 1st.
Mhm.
I could go out and look for grouse with my dog. I can't carry a gun. Can you take your dog for a walk into cover?
I'm pretty sure you can. I'm trying to think too, because when I got him, in 2021,
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy at NAVDA that I was, and we were talking because I thought it was a free for all if you had land, but he
Yeah.
had said something along the lines, and I'm going to probably screw it up as well. I think if you are a professional trainer, you can't, or maybe it's vice versa, because I feel like, but I've never been stopped if I'm just going out to run, like I said, that even whether it's just a good experience, but there is something with the hatch, and that's probably why
Right.
in Michigan.
There is a quiet season. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen in the regulation, so I guess I can't confidently comment at all. But
All right, we'll drop that one. We'll edit. That's
yeah.
edited now. So anything well, I mean, you could always let me know. Is there anything pressing, or is there anything that even us, the rest of us non-residents, us blue platers, is there anything we can do that, or just, buy your license, do the habitat stamp, buy the magazine, like just keep coming and hope for a good thing? Like, is there anything that we could do that, in your
I
opinion?
think so. And then like we were talking culturally, right? It's be respectful, which I'd say 95% of hunters are.
Yeah, but
It's
five's a bad percent. It's not.
it can ruin it, yeah. And
It can
so
ruin
that's really probably what it is like be respectful. Um, as I had talked, like how do we repair the disconnect or the relationship that I've seen with landowners? And
it. Mhm.
it's tough. Like I said, it's pheasant hunting, it's deer hunting, it's waterfowl hunting. Like all those things go into that relationship, and
Right.
it takes hunters of all different species to really set the precedent for the next generation and this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
A friend of mine came out one time with us, and he went to a place that was, North Dakota Trust, right? And
mhm.
most of them are grazed out west. But
Yes.
but you can get on them, and the cows aren't always on it, but
Mhm.
they have access to put their cows on it. So because it was in green, and he said, and I told him, like, you can hunt these spots. he parked right in front of a gate, and he got a nasty, nasty letter on his under his windshield wiper.
Well, and
And
that's
that's one of the things that could the straw that could break that farmer's back. Say,
yep.
damn it, I got this guy didn't read the rules
Yep.
and parked in
Well,
front of the gate.
and I've gotten two calls on me. Never one was that I like I said there's a section line and I was pulled over as far as in my opinion, as far as I could get over without being
Yeah,
45 degrees in my truck, right?
in the ditch. Yeah.
Um yeah, and so I hunted and about 2 hours after getting back to my vehicle, I have like three missed calls from an unknown number and I had a voicemail and I answered and it's the game warden. And he's like, "Hey, I just got a complaint that you're parked right on the section line." And I'm looking, I was like, I don't know. And then sure enough, I looked up the street and there's a guy in his truck with his binoculars out there.
Uh,
Like, yeah. And I was like, told him, I was like, well, should I go interact or something? He's like, no. He's like, I don't want to cause it a bigger issue just in case it
right.
becomes. He's like, well, I'm really sorry if he felt like I was,
Yeah.
blocking this section line.
And
But
that's something we could do as hunters
yeah,
is like double down on our due diligence and not make that one little mistake. Yeah.
yep. And and well, and what also threw me off, I was like, it had just rained, so it's like you could see if anyone had. I was like, this is a pretty. I don't think anyone's driven down. So I was like, was this guy just mad that I was near his section line, or was I actually blocking his section line? I don't know, but
Which you don't know
yeah,
what he's pulling down the road. He might be pulling down a big wide combine or something.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So
Well, so the rest of the winter's been pretty decent, right? Other than
yeah,
a typical like December. Are you still seeing birds out on the roads driving around the golden hour? Are you still seeing some?
yeah, which is yeah, you still see a lot. We had that cold spell, which I think we were like minus 30. Well, it
Yeah,
feels like minus 30, right? And I felt bad. I saw a bunch of birds. They were pecking away. I was like, I hope they survive.
I
But
know. I know.
yeah, you definitely see a lot still.
But that's a good sign. That's a
Yeah,
good sign.
yeah,
Well, Casey, I appreciate you writing me the letter. I do want to go back to your English setter. What was your path? I've been asking this lately because I've got feelings on how did you find you say your dad gave you your first one or
yep.
your first one. Are you guys loyal to a certain kennel or did you Google around to try to find one? How did you find like your last one and the one before?
Yeah, so with my first one, my dad had the pedigree chart, so I was able to see, several generations
Yeah.
back, and one of the names in that one. So that first one was more of a farm breed, if you want to say that. The guy had two setters that just happened to get
Right.
together, and he wasn't planning on a litter, and so he
Right.
was. I think my
English
dad.
setters for sale.
Yeah, and it was $300, and my dad's
Oh,
like,
that's
you don't see English setters for $300, so
no.
he got it, and
It
it was
costs
for
that much
Christmas.
it costs that much to cremate them.
Yeah, and he didn't think I'd take it because I told him, it was like I had just graduated. It's like I don't have a place for a dog, and he gave it to me for Christmas and was like, well, I guess I'm taking this thing home. And he's like, oh, I didn't think you'd take it and I'd get it. And I was like, well, you can't just throw it on my lap. And so like said is then I sort of had the pedigree and I saw the Brother Kennel name in it. So
I
when
was
I
kind
was
of
looking,
wondering. Yeah.
yeah, and I had searched English setters near and so that one's jumped out to me. I just knew they had a good lineage of dogs and all that. So that's sort of how I ended up. So my current setter is from the Berg Brother Kennels.
Well, I was gonna
So
possibly say that because I know quite a few North Dakota people that have Berg brothers, and I wanted to like, boy, could I be like pulling a magic trip off here? So
yeah.
I went the back route to ask you, but pretty happy with the
Yeah,
dog, huh?
I am. Yeah. And when he was going through the whole background too of like who the sire, who I was like, that's sort of gibberish to me. I'll
Right.
try to find out. And but yeah, he doesn't have an off switch, which is a good thing, bad thing, right? When you're in the field, he's in hunting mode. But when we're at home, all my families, I was like, does he ever stop? I was like, no, he doesn't.
Do you have a kennel
And
for him, or does he live on the bed sometimes?
he lives on the bed. He does sleep in the garage, but he has house access and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I am a runner myself, so me and him probably run 4 miles at least 5 times a week. So
You
he's
gotta, you
also
gotta
my.
stop. You gotta stop that shit. I'm telling you. Your
I
your
think,
your your knees. You're gonna be getting a knee replacement, just like
yeah.
me. Way too soon. Stop it, Casey. Let the dog run. Get a
Well, that
quad.
I can blame my dad for that one too, because I was not a runner at all, and he got me into it. And now,
Oh
and
my
like you said, as
God.
I've always heard the saying is like you're just making your dog a better athlete, which means he's gonna get tired less. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I know. I got people that have friends of mine that have high-powered dogs. They're like, I got to get them out. Oh, well, if I don't get them out, he goes like, I said, "Did you ever think you're building a triathlete? You
Yep.
are you are building a sled dog here." People back in the day, I never saw anybody do this, but I've heard people tell the story that they would put like weighted chains or like heavy chains to slow the dog down. I said, "You don't think that built up more
That's
shoulder muscle?
more
You,
muscle. Yeah.
you don't think you're not going to hunt him with a chain?" Now you got a dog that formerly did 12 miles an hour. Now he can do 14, right?
Yeah.
But
The
well,
biggest issue with him is the late season hunts. So like the next dog is I was looking at my so he's more of the Llewellyn line, right?
yeah.
My brother got more of the Ryman line. And
I'm reading
so
I'm reading a book on the Rymans right now as we speak.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, is it's
Yeah.
not the one Craig Koshik or
No,
is not
no.
it? Okay.
Craig wrote a great book. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
both of his or both of his volumes right
Yep.
behind me. I was at Pheasant Fest, and the Ryman setter breeders kind of have their own association.
Okay.
So it's a really tell your I'll get the name of it and send it to you
Yeah.
if he's still looking it up. There's I, I looked at the map. There's at least a couple dozen breeders, at least in at least a dozen states, and it's a little bigger, heavier bone, little more
Yep.
methodical. Yeah, I'll get you the title of that book and tell them I'm enjoying it so far, and then
Yeah.
I want to interview the one of the authors of the book.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point that you made because when I look at my brother's dog next to mine, my dog's 45 and my brother's is about 70.
Right, right,
Big old skull too.
yeah,
But like you said, he wanted a slower moving setter.
yeah,
So when I get out, mine does range a little bit. Is his only downfall. He almost needs a dummy field before we even get in the actual field.
yeah. That's
Um,
that's not great for pheasants.
no, no, I
That's
don't know
not
how many
great
times
for
it's like
pheasants.
you shut the door quietly, but the dog gets out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh. So I try to tell people I hunt with is like, hey, just a note,
Your
we
dog
need
might
to
be
run.
working. Your dog might be working for PETA. He's gonna
Yeah,
go make a 300-yard loop to burn his energy off,
yep,
and he just alarmed every pheasant in a 600-yard loop. He says there is a dog in the field.
yep.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, listen, Casey, I'm glad you wrote me the email, and I've enjoyed talking to you. And anything, if something comes up in the future, if you get more involved with either PF or the state, get a hold of me. I love conversations that aren't, I always want a dog story in there,
mhm.
but there's all,
Next, yeah. If there's the next time, I'll make it more dog orientated.
well, yeah, but I mean, I think, like I said earlier, I was the guy that just went hunting, thought just joining the group was enough. I'd be happy if everybody joined, but there's just more to think about. Like there's
Mhm.
just way more to think about. And I don't have an engineer's brain, but I got a hunter's brain, and I see things that are like, well, that doesn't make sense. And there's a
Yep.
reason why it doesn't make sense. So I think you shed some light on that. And if anybody uh, wants that information, that PDF that you sent me, anybody listening to this show that knows me, they can write me. I'll send them that PDF because there's just a ton of good data on there
Yeah.
that you sent me. And it would be boring as hell if you and I went over it line by line. Be like, and then in 2020,
It'd be
but
people falling asleep like they
oh
were in
yeah, it'd be
class
just
again.
like a
Yeah.
professor in a college, like,
Yeah.
Ron, you're stop it. But I'm glad you did the research. I mean, it's a different level of hunter than the average hunter out there, and I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let me hit the stop button here.